dehumanized. If you dehumanize your opponent, then anything you do to the opponent is justified on moral grounds. You have a moral right to dispatch the enemy. Remember, these are the Amalek, the subhumans, the animals that deserve the worst. So I think we need to keep in mind, understand how the Israelis look upon this. This is an object lesson. Of course, you would think at this point, having already killed, 40,000 people and wounded another 50 or 60,000, the object lesson would have been administered, but apparently not. So from the standpoint of being a war crime in a court of law, they may say, and you would know more about this than I do, that this was accidental, that all of these people who were killed happened to be in the way. It was all collateral damage. So I don't know how you could easily prove it. I mean, on its face, it seems unconscionable. It seems incomprehensible to me. But if you understand the background and the context, it's predictable.
Is the resistance to Israel still in and maybe about to come out of the closet?
Oh, I think so. I think you've got talks behind the scenes. I think certainly the Arab states now are increasingly united in taking action, which they think they can do. The Egyptians are ready to strike. But remember, none of the Arab states really is powerful enough to take on the Israelis for any length of time. I mean, this may come as a surprise, but all of these Arab states don't sit around building military power for the purpose of destroying Israel. So that means that without the Turks and the Iranians, there's not much chance that the Arab states can do much. The one dramatic exception, of course, is Hezbollah, which has the capacity to destroy a large portion of the country. And I read some reports last night, which I can't confirm, that Hezbollah is already operating inside northern Israel. And that's not hard to do. They have tunnels, they have ways to do it, and they appear to have begun doing that. And I'm sure that's putting enormous pressure on Mr. Netanyahu, who has hundreds of thousands of people living in central Israel now that were formerly living in the north or the southern portions of the country and can't live there anymore.
Are Netanyahu's days numbered?
I don't know. He has the support over 80%, and I think others have told you this, from the population. As long as that remains unchanging, I would say no. Now, could that change? Well, I think if the war spreads and Israel proper is attacked and large portions of central Israel are laid waste, yes, then he could certainly lose support. But barring that, I don't think so, because the majority of Israelis living in the middle of the country are not touched by this war in a way that would lead them to that conclusion.
Is the decision by former IDF chief of staff and former Israeli defense minister, and until 2 days ago, a member of the war cabinet, Benny Gantz, to resign from the war cabinet, the beginning of unraveling for Netanyahu, or at least a blow to him? Or is this just sort of internecine personality power politics?
I don't think this is an unraveling. Gantz was the former chief of defense. He's a gentleman. I met him very briefly. He's not an extremist by any means. That doesn't mean he disagrees with what's happening in Gaza. He may have some second thoughts about spreading the war, simply because I think he's unsure that Israel will have ironclad support from us if they do it. I don't know. But Eisenkot, that's a different person entirely. But both of these men are not figures in the Israeli parliament. They don't represent a significant political following. So it may be a little of both of what you said, but the unraveling part, I just don't see it. I think Netanyahu is very strong right now. And of course, he's amazingly strong here in the United States. And by that, I mean on the Hill.
Well, we know he's coming on July 24th, I think. One member of Congress, and only one so far, said he won't be in attendance, and that is no surprise. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. The proposal that President Biden came up for a three-stage series of events between Israel and Gaza, which would trigger the release of huge numbers of hostages, Palestinian hostages held by the Israelis, Israeli hostages held by Hamas and eventually the termination of hostilities. It seems as though it's been rejected by Prime Minister Netanyahu because he will lose his majority if he goes along with this. That, according to the two very conservative ministers in his group, Smotrich and Ben Gvir. Yet the American government insists that this is an Israeli proposal. Now, if we played for you, and if we have, I apologize, Admiral Kirby saying it's an Israeli proposal.
I don't know, but I don't think Admiral Kirby has much credibility anymore.
All right, well, this will get under your skin. Chris, let's watch Kirby for 3 times say it's an Israeli proposal.
That proposal, an Israeli proposal, has been given to Hamas. It was done on Thursday night, our time. We're waiting for an official response from Hamas. We would note that publicly, Hamas officials came out and welcomed this proposal. Well, this was an Israeli proposal. We have every expectation that if Hamas agrees to the proposal, as was transmitted to them, an Israeli proposal, that Israel would say yes.
I think if Mr. Netanyahu announces it, it's an Israeli proposal. As far as I know, Mr. Netanyahu has not announced any such thing. Secondly, I'm sure there are things going on behind the scenes, both arguments and cooperation, because I'm quite certain that Biden's crowd has said, you've got to throw us a bone. You know, you've got to give us something. We have to be able to say something that conveys the illusion that we are actually interested in an end to the hostilities and some sort of ceasefire. I think that's probably happened. But the notion that this was a hard and fast proposal that came from Prime Minister Netanyahu, that's absurd.
Here's Secretary Blinken as he landed in Cairo just 2 hours ago, Colonel, on the very same topic, being buttonholed by my friend Andrea Mitchell of NBC News.
Secretary, you say that everyone but Hamas has agreed to this. Benjamin Netanyahu has certainly said otherwise publicly, and the hostage families are saying you should try everything if this fails.
First, let me be very clear. Israel has accepted the proposal. In fact, they were critical in putting it forward. So the only party, no, that is what the official position of the Israeli government and the Prime Minister. So the only party that has not accepted, the only party that's not said yes, is Hamas.
Well, Cy Hirsch, and we all know his reputation for excellence and triple checking all of his sources, says that this was concocted by the Americans to make Biden look good and to push Netanyahu in a corner. I can't imagine that this was an Israeli proposal, Colonel, but I get it. I understand why these people say what they say and do what they do. The West Wing is holding its breath until November 5th. Do you think
after Blinken left for the last time, the talks with the Egyptian government in Cairo, where he was talking to General Sisi and his inner circle,
right?
I received word from someone who is very close to that inner circle. I said, well, what do you think? Where are things headed? And the answer was, well, that's the last time we're going to pay any attention to Blinken. I said, really? Why? And they said, well, we're tired of listening to Mr. Netanyahu's talking points.
Wow.
So I don't believe anything these people say publicly. The truth is that there isn't much daylight between people like Blinken and other members of the cabinet and the White House and Netanyahu, or for that matter, most of the Republicans and large numbers of the Democrats. They are all birds of a feather.
Well, we're going to see that when Netanyahu is there. If you were a senator, would you attend the joint session of Congress where Netanyahu is going to speak?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I would go to simply listen. I would not, staying away isn't going to make any difference. But I certainly would not ask my Israeli minder whether or not I could attend or not attend. So, I wouldn't have one of the minders that apparently exist all over the House and the Senate telling our members how they should vote in matters concerning Israel.
Who are the minders? Employees of AIPAC?
Well, I'm sure that they're agents of AIPAC or AIPAC. AIPAC is full of money. It's got inexhaustible resources. If they think they're running out, they can get more. Same thing for somebody like David Brock. All of these people are connected, and they're all interested in the same thing, which is Israel, period. And bringing us to heel is very easy. We have the best government that money can buy. And to find somebody like Mr. Massey from Kentucky who is willing to go it alone is almost incredibly, exceptional, unfortunately.
Thomas Massey is one of my heroes, and I know you have extremely high regard for him as well. His intellect and personal courage and fidelity to the Constitution are extraordinary. Do you think that the Israeli government understands, and you've told us this from day one, not that they understand it, but that they can't do it, that they cannot defeat Hamas?
Yes, I think they understand that, and I don't think they care. I think their view is that if they can kill or expel the population from Gaza, then turn their guns on the West Bank and push those people out, that will do more for their security than simply going after the Hamas fighters per se. And that's what you're watching right now. That's what's happening. And everyone in the United States is being told to support that, all their representatives. And I think the same attitude towards, unfortunately, Muslim and Christian Arabs that enables mass slaughter, as we saw recently on this raid, is also widespread in many circles in the United States. In other words, why do we care? It's interesting. And I think that has to go back all the way to 9/11. You'll remember how that was handled. And suddenly everyone from Saddam Hussein to Osama bin Laden, were arch enemies of the world, and we're all involved and all part of the same strategy to destroy America. And that they hated us because we were, quote unquote, free.
Right.
I think the same cocktail level of familiarity with the truth then is now widespread yet again. And of course, it's always made easier to go along with these things if there's a fat check that goes with it.
Last question. We talked about this earlier, but I neglected to ask you. Gantz and Netanyahu, wouldn't it really be Tweedledee and Tweedledum given the 80% of the Israeli public that supports the war?
Yeah, I agree. I don't see any end in sight. The only way you get an end to this right now is if serious damage is inflicted on the Israeli population, its cities, its urban areas. That's it. And I think that's one of the reasons that we are nearby. We've pre-positioned B-52s and substantial air power to fly in on very short notice and do as much damage as possible, certainly to Hezbollah, but potentially anybody else we think is capable of threatening Israel in that fashion. But short of that, I don't see any evidence that any of this will stop. It will just grind on. And I think anybody who thinks otherwise, who doesn't think the Israelis can do it, they're wrong, because we subsidize their economy. Their economy couldn't survive without our backing and support. They couldn't operate for more than a few days without the ammunition that we provide. And even though I think their intelligence is very good, I'm sure we're providing them with a lot of regional intelligence and insight that they otherwise might not have. So, no, I don't see this ending. I think this is going to go a long way, and we may have to see hundreds of thousands, maybe millions die before something happens.
Do your sources indicate to you whether or not there were American special forces on the ground in Gaza helping to extricate these 4 hostages?
I'm told there were. Beyond that, I don't have any specifics. I don't have any tangible, concrete proof. But the special ops community over the last 20 years has grown very close with the Israelis, simply because they frequently helped and assisted us to kill, the people that we were interested in killing. So I wouldn't be surprised by that, and I'm sure that the attitude that I've tried to articulate is also there.
Colonel Douglas Macgregor, thank you, my dear friend. I know you have a busy day and a busy week. I appreciate all your time and all your analysis. As always, I hope we can see you again next week.
Okay, good, Judge. Thank you very much.